It was a quiet Saturday morning in Maplewood Estates, the kind where everything seems perfectly ordinary. Birds chirped, sprinklers hissed, and the faint hum of lawnmowers drifted through the air. Most residents were enjoying a slow weekend, but Keran, the head of the HOA, was on a mission. Known in the neighborhood for her strict enforcement of rules, she had a reputation that made many homeowners wary. Keran spotted Mr. Thompson, a longtime resident, trimming his hedges. She frowned. The hedges were just a little taller than the HOA regulations allowed. Adjusting her sunglasses and clutching her clipboard, she strode across the street. "Mr. Thompson," she called, her voice sharp and commanding, "your hedges are over the limit. You need to trim them immediately or I'll file a complaint with the board." Mr. Thompson looked up, clearly frustrated. "Keran, really? That's just 2 inches over the limit. I've lived here for 20 years and it's never been a problem." Keran's eyes narrowed. "Rules are rules. It has to be corrected by noon." Shaking his head, Mr. Thompson returned to trimming, muttering under his breath. Meanwhile, Keran moved on, determined to check on every minor infraction she could find. Her next target was a slightly faded mailbox, then a new family who had just moved in. Boxes were stacked neatly at the curb, but Keran saw an opportunity to enforce the rules immediately. "Excuse me," she said to the young mother, "but your boxes are in the wrong place. They need to be moved to the side of the house immediately." The mother blinked, confused. "Oh, okay. I didn't realize." Keran didn't wait for further explanation. She jotted notes on her clipboard, imagining the satisfaction of sending out a strongly worded letter to the HOA board. But in her haste, she didn't notice a patch of wet grass from a sprinkler. Her high heels slipped, and in an instant she tumbled across the driveway. For a moment, everything froze. Residents peeked from their porches, some stifling laughter, some gasping in surprise. Keran, usually so composed, was sprawled on the ground, red-faced and humiliated. Her clipboard had flown into the air, papers scattering like confetti. Mr. Thompson, despite their earlier disagreement, hurried over. "Are you okay, Keran?" he asked, trying not to smile. Keran struggled to her feet, brushing herself off. For the first time, she realized that maybe her obsession with rules had gone too far. But instead of accepting help gracefully, she muttered about careless homeowners and stomped toward her car, unaware that her next action would push her over the edge and lead to instant regret. After her humiliating fall, Keran was more determined than ever. The embarrassment hadn't humbled her, it had fueled her. She convinced herself that the neighborhood needed her stricter than ever. By Monday, she had drafted a detailed email to the HOA board, listing every violation she'd noticed over the weekend. Mr. Thompson's hedges, the new family's boxes, even the Johnsons' slightly crooked garden gnome were included. She attached photos, some carefully staged, and sent it off with a sense of pride. Confident the board would back her, Keran set her sights on the new family. She marched up to their door, clipboard in hand, her tone falsely cheerful. "I noticed your mailbox is slightly off-center. Rotating it just a little would help keep the street consistent." The young mother blinked, overwhelmed. Okay. Thanks for letting me know." Keran didn't wait for gratitude. She jotted more notes, imagining the letters she would send. Meanwhile, whispers began to spread through the neighborhood. People were already talking about HOA Keran and her obsessive rule enforcement. Kids on bikes dodged her path, and some homeowners deliberately kept their hedges slightly below the limit. Keran, oblivious, thought it was admiration. Her next big idea was the HOA community picnic at the local park. Keran arrived early, clipboard ready, scanning every detail. Seating arrangements, tables, and even the spacing between blankets were under her scrutiny. Residents tried to humor her, adjusting chairs and moving towels according to her instructions. But things quickly escalated. Keran handed out a compliance survey for everyone to fill out, covering everything from hedge height to mailbox placement. A neighbor spoke up, trying to calm her. "Keran, it's a picnic. We're here to relax, not be audited." Keran's eyes narrowed. "Relaxation without order leads to chaos. I'm simply protecting our community standards." At that moment, a child ran into her clipboard, knocking it from her hands. Papers flew everywhere, and Keran lunged to catch them, only to trip over a picnic blanket. She landed face first in a tray of potato salad. The park erupted with laughter. Keran, drenched and humiliated, scrambled to her feet, muttering about careless neighbors. The incident was caught on camera by several residents, and by the end of the day, the video was circulating widely. Keran's obsession with rules had turned into a public spectacle. The neighborhood wasn't laughing with her, it was laughing at her. And Keran, for the first time, was starting to sense that her strict enforcement might have gone too far. But she was stubborn, and the next boundary she crossed would cement her instant regret. By mid-week, Keran's reputation had spread throughout Maplewood Estates. The potato salad incident at the picnic had become the talk of the neighborhood, but instead of taking a step back, Keran doubled down. She believed the community needed her even more. Her next focus was the community pool. Keran was horrified by what she considered chaos. Towels thrown on chairs, children running and splashing, sunscreen bottles scattered everywhere. Armed with a freshly printed pool rules and violations list, she marched to the water, determined to enforce order. "Attention, residents," she announced, raising her clipboard. "All pool towels must be neatly folded, sunscreen bottles aligned, and children must follow structured swimming times." Parents exchanged confused glances. One teenager muttered, "Is she serious?" Keran ignored them and began inspecting towels. She approached Mrs. Patel, who was reading quietly on a lounge chair. "Your towel is slightly crooked," Keran said sharply. "Please fix it immediately." Mrs. Patel raised an eyebrow. "Keran, it's a towel." Keran huffed. "It's about maintaining standards." Then disaster struck. A large inflatable pool toy floated near her feet. Keran stepped back to avoid it, but her high heels and the wet tiles betrayed her. She slipped, arms flailing, and fell hard, knocking over chairs and sending water splashing everywhere. The pool erupted into chaos. Children screamed with delight, parents scrambled, and Keran, soaked and humiliated, sat at the edge, papers and clipboards scattered around her. To make matters worse, someone had filmed the entire scene. The video quickly circulated in the neighborhood group chat, showing Keran screaming about standards while chaos unfolded behind her. That evening, Keran received messages from neighbors and the HOA board. Some were polite reminders to take a step back, while others were more critical, suggesting she had gone too far. Even Mr. Thompson, whose hedges had started this whole chain of events, shook his head in quiet disbelief. For the first time, Keran felt the sting of regret. It wasn't just the slips, spills, or public humiliation. It was the realization that her obsession with control had alienated the entire community. She had crossed the line. And while she hadn't fully admitted it yet, deep down, she knew that the consequences of her actions were unavoidable. By Wednesday evening, Keran sat in her living room, still feeling the sting of her poolside disaster. She scrolled through her phone and froze. The HOA board had sent a formal email, a warning about her excessive enforcement of minor rules and intimidation of residents. Reading those words, Keran felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: true regret. For years, she had believed her strict oversight kept Maplewood Estates perfect. Yet, in just a few days, her authority had crumbled, replaced by ridicule and frustration from the neighbors she thought she was protecting. Kids avoided her path, homeowners rolled their eyes, and the new family she had targeted now deliberately steered clear. Even Mr. Thompson, ever patient, seemed silently disappointed. Keran decided to hold a community standards meeting, hoping to regain some control. She arrived with her clipboard, prepared to lecture about hedge heights, mailbox alignment, and proper picnic etiquette. But when she entered the hall, she realized most residents weren't taking it seriously. A few sat quietly, exchanging smirks, and the new family stayed in the back. Keran launched into her speech, citing bylaws and best practices. She pointed to charts, waved her pen, and emphasized every detail. Yet, instead of nods of agreement, she received suppressed laughter, side whispers, and a few eye rolls. One child even called out, "Mom says you're being silly." Keran froze. The absurdity of her actions hit her hard. By the end of the meeting, she finally understood the truth. Respect could not be demanded through fear or obsession. Her constant rule enforcement had not improved the neighborhood. It had driven a wedge between her and the community. She had become the punchline instead of the authority. Walking through Maplewood Estates afterward, Keran felt a strange mix of embarrassment and clarity. Residents watched her, some smiling politely, others barely hiding their amusement. Keran lifted her head, offering a tentative wave. It wasn't the triumphant return she had imagined, but it was a start. For the first time, Keran accepted that rules were important, but kindness, empathy, and humility mattered far more. She had crossed the line and felt instant regret, but this time the lesson was clear. Perhaps this embarrassment was exactly what she needed to change, and maybe, just maybe, rebuild her place in the neighborhood with respect rather than fear. Keran had learned the hardest lesson of all. Control and rules mean nothing if they come at the cost of human connection. Enjoying this wild neighborhood drama with HOA Keran? Hit that subscribe button to catch more hilarious and shocking real-life stories. Also, give this a like if Keran's antics made you laugh or cringe, and drop a comment below. What would you have done if you lived in Maplewood Estates?